Bueno, y para dar comienzo a la primer charla de este primer bloque del Marketing Shake, que está auspiciada por nuestro sponsor Black Pluto TV, quiero darle la bienvenida al señor Hernán Litvac, vicepresidente de amdia, co-founder de icomm Unify Marketing Cloud, que estará junto a Christian Kurz, Senior VP Global Streaming and Corporate Insights de VIACOM CBS. Muy bienvenido.
Pluto TV es la nueva plataforma con lo mejor de la televisión, series y películas, gratis. Disfruta de todo el entretenimiento. Pluto TV está disponible en cualquier dispositivo que imagines. Entra ahora a pluto.tv.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Vamos a estar comenzando este evento con este primer panel de lujo. Nos va a estar acompañando Christian Kurz. Él es un experto en todo lo que tiene que ver con la parte de research, investigación de mercado y comportamiento del consumidor de VIACOM CBS. Para los que por ahí no conocen tanto la profundidad de VIACOM, cuando ustedes escuchen nombrar a Pluto TV, a Nickelodeon, a MTV, a Comedy Central, a Telefe, bueno, es parte del conglomerado de VIACOM CBS. Él tiene más de 20 años de investigación de mercado y es uno de los referentes de la industria a la hora de entender cómo el corrimiento de las audiencias se están dando a lo largo y a lo ancho de la televisión. Nuevos formatos y acrónimos vamos a descubrir hoy y muy probablemente uno cuando habla de la televisión siente que ya lo sabe todo, porque en definitiva nacimos con la televisión. Pero definitivamente en este tipo de eventos lo que buscamos es comprender otro tipo de layers, ir un poquito más en profundidad y saber qué es lo que está pasando con estas audiencias. Mientras la televisión abierta parece desaparecer, aparentemente, estos grandes conglomerados siguen comprando canales de televisión abierta y estudios de televisión. Ahora voy a hacer un pequeño switch. I'm going to switch to English to present Mr. Christian Kurz. Hello, Christian. It's a pleasure to have you here today in this Marketing Shake by amdia. We are eager to learn more about how the industry of content and streaming is evolving, especially in the voice of VIACOM CBS. We want to delve into how audiences are behaving in the new platforms like Pluto TV and how the business model based on VOD, like AVOD, SVOD, and TVOD are engaging them. I came from the email marketing industry, now marketing automation, where every year we have to say, hello, we are alive. I think something similar occurs or feel when you are talking about television, right? Christian here is VP of Global Streaming and Corporate Insight at VIACOM CBS. Welcome to Marketing Shake, and now I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Hernan. Very good to be here. Thank you for having me. And yes, it is a really, really exciting time for the media world in general, the advertising world, and the video-driven world, what we used to call TV, right, as well. So it's really good to be here and to be talking to you. What I'll be talking about is the latest research project that we have completed, which is called Did You Watch? The Power of Talking About TV. And essentially, we did many, many years ago, we talked about taking television away from people and what would they miss when we are doing that. And today, what we've done is we've let people watch TV as much as they like, but taken away the opportunity to talk about it. And that's really the interesting element here. Now, when I say TV in this particular context, and actually for our overall company, we mean, yes, what we all used to understand as television, as well as internet streaming in a live way and in an on-demand way and in long form and short form and any other which way. So that includes the Telefes of this world. That also includes the Mi Telefe of this world and Pluto TV and Paramount Plus and all our competitors as well. Because really we do believe that from a consumer perspective, what TV means today is video in a professionally produced quality and capacity that they use, and then oftentimes we as an industry use as a vehicle for advertising. But really it is that entire ecosystem that we're trying to talk about. And it certainly includes the advertiser-funded VOD or the free VOD and that entire alphabet of VODs, which we'll talk about later as well. So as you've already said, Viacom CBS, big company, lots of brands, lots of streaming platforms, Paramount Plus, Pluto TV, and of course, all our linear brands. I'm not going to repeat them again. But throughout all of this, we are very proud that to have research and insights and understanding the consumer as the foundation of everything we do. So this is a quote here from our president and CEO, which talks about how really the foundation of everything we do as a business is trying to understand the consumer. And that makes my job, of course, not only very exciting, but also very interesting for the rest of the company to be working with everybody, essentially, to figure out how we can do what we do in a better way. So what I'll be talking about very quickly is what the rules were in this particular research project. And then I'll play a video around from respondents actually talking about how they perceived this experiment. And then we'll talk about what they missed and also what makes a show talkable. So what makes a piece of content, what inspires talkability about that? And then we'll wrap up with key takeaways and have hopefully time for a couple of questions as well. So the rules, to test that power beyond the TV screen, we told respondents that they couldn't talk about TV for almost 2 weeks. And we did this all over the world. This is a qualitative project. And we went into 7 countries, unfortunately, in this instance, not into Argentina, but we'll do that next time, I promise. And we talked to 24 households around the world where the entire household needed to participate in this, right? So that was, in some cases, a person living on their own, and in some cases, a family, multi-generational, where the entire family could not talk about television. And when we say they could not talk about television, that means, A, it was about linear television and on-demand and streaming, and also any content about TV. So websites or podcasts or trailers, any of those types of things were out of bound. And also, they couldn't talk about it either to each other in person or on social or at work or anywhere else. So there was an absolute limit to you can watch anything you want, you just can't talk about it. And that led to some very interesting experiences. So it became clear very, very quickly to respondents that TV is just a part of their everyday life. You go to the supermarket and you joke with whomever you see there about a show. Or there's somebody walking down with a bag that has a logo on it from a TV show, and it sparks a conversation. So it became very, very quickly apparent to our respondents that this was difficult for them. And as one of our respondents here expressed it, is talking about TV is just part of the fabric of everyday interactions. It's just part of life, and it keeps us connected. And that came through very, very quickly. What that meant is that our people felt trapped and restricted. So they were passionate about things and they couldn't let this out. It also felt weird, rigid, awkward, uncomfortable, lots of negative words there expressing those emotions. And then also it felt really heavy for them. They felt burdened. They were carrying this weight that they couldn't talk about it. And all of that really, really built up. So what did they do about it? Some of them avoided it altogether. So they deleted Instagram. They went to another room. Some people physically ran away when people were starting to talk about television. And we've got 2 respondents talking about that in the video in a second. And then some people found alternatives. So they listened to other things. They visited the theater. Some people stopped watching altogether. So the best way to not talk about it is to not have anything to talk about. And then there was an awful lot of cheating going on as well. So we obviously made respondents record not only their own reactions, that's the video you're going to see in a minute, but also how much they cheated. And that was quite fun, particularly for our younger respondents, to be able to know, for once, keep a tally of how often mom and dad were cheating with something, right? So those are just some of the images here on the right. And with that, I'm going to play the video, which is a few minutes long, and it's about respondents talking about their experience in all this. And then I'll come back and unpack this a little bit more and figure out what it is we have learned overall.
is an intimate, powerful, and universal source of connection to others. Regardless of how you watch, whether that's regular TV or through on-demand services, talking about our favorite shows and movies brings us closer to people, near and far. So what would happen if we couldn't talk about it? To explore this question, we recruited 24 households in 7 countries around the world. For almost 2 weeks, there was one rule. They could not talk about TV. That meant a stop to conversations about TV in the home or with friends. And it went further. There would be no following anything related to TV on social media, no reading blogs about TV, and no listening to podcasts about TV content. People were free to watch TV as much as they liked, but they had to keep it to themselves.
I went to the park to chill with my friends, and one of them tried to talk to me about this show, and I literally just looked at him and went, and I ran. Literally, that has been one of my things to do. I've run.
Come potete vedere, sono salita immediatamente a casa perché ero giù con le mie amiche e praticamente stiamo parlando di serie TV e quant'altro.
This was a lot harder than they expected, and many struggled. It made them feel trapped, weird, burdened. It was so difficult, in fact, that there were a few slip-ups and cheats along the way.
I feel like I'm getting gray hairs from not being able to talk about TV. Currently feeling deprived, alone in my little world.
It is really, really awkward that I can't talk to people about watching a TV show. I can't even say anything. Yeah, I think it's getting to me now, but I'm trying to control my emotions. I hope I'm not sounding too agitated.
I can't talk to her about it, and it's killing me.
Ini dia. Kalau tidak membicarakan soal TV, perasaannya akan yang gitu. Gemes banget dong, yang pasti. Gemes dalam artian, aduh please gitu. Susah banget deh. Itu benar-benar rasanya.
I really felt like there was a huge lump sitting here while watching a specific movie, and I felt like I had to take it out and talk about whatever or express myself about that movie or scene.
We already know that watching TV is rewarding, but this study showed us that talking about TV enhances those benefits and takes them to a new level. Talking about TV brings us joy. It helps us grow, it grounds us, and it connects us. The first benefit we uncovered is the sheer joy of talking about TV, which can bring as much delight as watching it.
Brings up a good conversation or brings up a good subject to talk about. So really good conversation starter and really good just if you want some laughs and want to chill out and feel better.
I feel like a big part of like watching a show is the discussions you have and the theories you make and like the speculation and like the commentary, you know, and the banter when you watch it with friends.
Talking about TV helps us grow by building knowledge, understanding, and skills.
One of the things I love most about watching this kind of stuff with Jack is that he always has the historical facts in his mind to share with me while we're watching or after we're watching. It's really seeing how much he enjoys it and sharing all of the information he knows about the particular subject matter always adds an extra element to those shows or movies for me.
Cuando vemos televisión realmente compartimos un momento muy agradable porque a pesar de que estamos, digamos, viendo la televisión, en algún inter o en alguna pausa que hacemos, comentamos lo che sta passando e lo applicamos muchas veces a nostra vita.
Io credo che parlare di TV sia importante perché ti confronti con altre persone e che hanno delle visioni magari diverse dalle tue.
Talking about TV grounds us by making us feel safe, feel stronger as a person, or feel truly at home.
It's an easy conversation to have. It's just something that you don't really have to think about it. You don't have to go back and think if what you said was right or if that person misinterpreted it. It's just very easy conversation.
Terjalin baik antara hubungan aku dengan temanku, hubungan aku dengan keluarga aku menjadi lebih akrab karena ada topik yang dibicarakan yang seru dan mengandung emosi juga.
Talking about TV connects us with people like us and helps us meet new friends.
Talking about TV makes me feel like I'm part of a community.
Brings people together, common ground. We relate to each other. We are the same.
More ammo in conversation. It can keep conversation going, adds into conversation, can really create like camaraderie through similarities on similar watch shows, especially on exciting ones, seeing their point of view, discussing about it, getting exciting about it.
Life without conversations about TV was difficult and lonely, and it was a great relief to get talking again. There is real power in talking TV, and we're not going to stop.
It kind of just like goes against like human nature. I would just like wanted to talk about shows you watch and stuff.
All right, so that was the video. And what you've heard really is those 4 elements of joy, growth, grounding, and connection. And I'll talk about each of them in a little bit more detail. Starting first with joy, where really everyday life can be difficult and dull for people. And they need, or we all need something to lift us up. Talking about TV gives us joy, gives us that joy as people. We don't get a lot of joy from taking a part in a lot of things. However, TV really, really breaks that mold. People get so much joy out of feeling that they're taking part in this TV world. There's guessing games of, okay, who's done this? Particularly when we're talking about any sort of crime thriller type thing. We're trying to figure out, share jokes, we're guessing, we're playing along, particularly on quiz shows. And there's also a deeper joy in there as well of admiring the creativity and the fan theory, understanding or trying to understand in more detail what's behind this and where are we going. So then we have growth, and talking about TV isn't just about fun. It can help people grow specifically. In more detail, parents use television or video in general to teach kids. And that's not just intentional, let's go watch this to learn something. It really is much more the happenstance. So when we're watching something together and something comes up and you use that as a teaching moment. And it's also not just parents, it's also siblings who are using that with younger siblings and saying, look, this is what happened here and this is what it means. But it's not just kids, adults are learning through here as well. It helps nourish existing interests and passions, and it helps expand the interests that we already have. So we're growing by broadening our perspectives on life in general, discussing opposite views, breaking down barriers, getting to know other people's perspectives and opinions is what's really helping here. Then we've got grounding, which of course in these very turbulent times is a very good thing. Conversation can be a minefield, and talking about TV grounds people and it helps. The topic of TV is a safe space. So you go to any dinner party, and one of our respondents, yeah, there it is, Vanessa, she says it's like Switzerland. Nobody can be offended if you talk about television, because that then starts the conversation and then you can sound each other out. On top of that, of course, there is nostalgia in bonding with loved ones and talking about all of these types of things. And then that brings us very neatly to this element of connection, where we are connecting with the wider world as well as with people in our households. It creates the sense of community and acceptance in talking about TV. And it helps forge a social identity for us. I can be very good at certain things and I can be the expert in a topic, but talking about this and sharing my passion through and with TV with others is something that really helps here. So what makes a TV show talkable is really then the next step of, right? So where are we trying to go with this? And really, this boils down to this whole idea of a TV show makes you want to talk about it if it makes you feel, it makes you think, it makes you rethink, and or it makes you belong. So feeling is about, clearly it's emotional, right? Love it or hate it, but you feel something that is going to make you want to talk about it. It also needs to be high quality and a pleasure to watch, because otherwise you wouldn't be watching it, and therefore it's engaging. The thinking piece is it's got to be interesting and it has to be substantial. So there has to be enough there for you to actually think about it. Then comes the rethink. So this is where things are disruptive. They're disturbing. They're pushing the envelope and they're challenging my preconceptions. That also means sometimes that is relevant to me. It may be realistic, it may be perceptive, it may be poignant, but the important thing is that it makes me challenge my own perceptions, and I may at the end change my opinion or not change my opinion. That's not the point. The point is it made you rethink certain things. And then lastly on here is the belong. And that can be about a specific thing. So if you are part of a specific audience and this topic is specific to you, then it makes you feel part of that group and authentic. Or it is also universal, which means that we are part of the wider group. We're all talking about the same thing through social, at work, in whatever which ways. It is that wider cultural conversation that we really mean here. And all of these points can really be delivered on by various different types of genres. So we've just got 3 examples here where horror, not a genre that I'm ever going to watch, but it certainly makes you feel hopefully scared and thrilled and unsettled. You may think about, oh, what would I do in this situation? It may make you rethink certain ideas and sense of safety and primal fears. And if you watch this stuff, you also belong to the group of people who are really into horror films, right? So there's an element there. You look at reality, it's very different. It makes you feel involved and entertained and excited. There is an amazing creativity in certain shows, particularly in the ones where they're actually making something. It helps you challenge certain perceptions in various ways. And then again, you're part of the cultural conversation or a more specific community. And then comedy does the same thing. It makes you hopefully feel amused and uplifted, which is a really, really important point. Sometimes it makes you think, driven by relatable characters. All characters have flaws and foibles, and sometimes that's really important. And then you belong to pop culture society via everyday references to all or some of these shows. And that's really it. So that's taking me to the 4 main takeaways from this project that we've learned. And it's really that the power of content to hook audience is stronger than ever. We know that people need that visual stimulation, the video, but we now also know that they really need to talk about it. That talk is absolutely a 360 experience. So that starts on a screen. It can be a TV screen, that can be a laptop, that can be a tablet or a mobile phone, but it starts from there and it doesn't stop there. It then goes into real world conversations, real world products, digital conversations, podcasts. All of those types of areas are part of that 360 experience and ecosystem. Talking about TV enhances the benefits that we already had, and then TV becomes talkable when it makes you feel, think, rethink, or belong. So talking about the TV makes the world go round, as one of our respondents was saying here, and life without conversations about TV was really difficult and lonely for people. And it was a great relief for them to be able to talk TV again. And that is really it for the presentation. So with that, let's have a couple of questions and conversation.
Excellent, Christian. Thank you very much. I think that many of us are changing our vision about television. And as a marketer, you gave us many insights to work with. Now I like to make some questions if it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, VIACOM CBS has a diverse ecosystem that spans the many of VOD acronyms like AVOD, SVOD, and TVOD, and the newest called FAST, free ad support streaming television like Pluto TV. Could you explain how data informs VIACOM CBS ecosystem and business models in those areas?
I could try, but yeah, first also is that alphabet soup that you just referenced here, right? There is AVOD and BVOD and CVOD and every other VOD. And there's so many different letters that the way we think about it at VIACOM is essentially our business model historically has been in the 3 categories of there's free, then there's some sort of cable element things, and then there's premium, particularly in the US where we've had premium networks as well, right? So the free for Argentina traditionally would have been Telefe. Then in the cable world, we have MTV Comedy Central, and the premium would have been a premium movie channel. We transfer that into the streaming world, and we go into the free space where we have 2 products, we have the catch-up services like the Mi Telefe, and then we also have Pluto. Pluto TV, really global player, the biggest fast service. What fast really means is free streaming with ads in it. That's what it means. And it essentially is the closest to a linear television signal that you can get through streaming. It's just different types of channels and much more nichified in a way. So that's the free box. Then we get into the equivalent to what cable used to be. That is our SVOD platform. That is Paramount Plus. So that's where you pay and you get an experience with content that is better or faster or earlier than it would be in the free world. And then oftentimes, particularly in the US, we have the premium segment as well, which the US brand for that is Showtime. Internationally, we're really wrapping that into Paramount Plus. So really, it's a free and premium environment where we have the free elements that we want as many people out there to test and try. And if you have not tried Pluto TV, please do. There is no registration. There's nothing there. It's a very, very easy thing. And then we go into the premium world. So that's our strategy as a whole. And from a data perspective, of course, we were led by this idea that, well, there are people who are willing to pay a bit extra to get faster access or more or higher quality or what those other things are. And on top of that, we want to be able to reach the mass market, which obviously from an advertising point of view is incredibly important. It is harder and harder to reach the vast majority of people. So providing additional channels in a quality environment where we can reach that, right? Like big screen is still the best quality of engagement that you can have with consumers. And to expand that was a really, really important piece of the strategy for us.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next. For those people who are not experts, can you explain where the different generations, centennials, millennials, etc., consume content across the below and the preference that they are reflected in VIACOM CBS insights, devices, platform, business models they choose or prefer?
Yes. So the interesting thing, well, it's actually, we found it interesting, but it is still very much true. There remains a hierarchy of screens in place. For anybody of any age, if you want to sit down and watch great video, you do it on the biggest screen that is available to you. That oftentimes is a TV screen. That tends to not be a TV screen in a few situations, primarily when somebody else is already using the TV screen to watch something else. And that, of course, has a bigger impact on our younger family members who are not necessarily in control of the TV set. Or in some households where there is no TV set because they never bothered to buy one, or you're not at home, so you're not in the place where the TV set is, right? That's when you go to other places, and then you go to the laptop or the tablet because that's the next biggest screen. And the only place where the smartphone really, really plays very strongly is, of course, when you're commuting. So it's like the most portable device, but also for teenagers. Teenagers, we know, really, really value the privacy and their private sphere. And particularly if they're supposed to be asleep in bed, then watching stuff on that smartphone under the blanket is a very, very easy thing to do. And on the smartphone, it's much harder for anybody to look over their shoulder and see what you're watching, right? So that's kind of the hierarchy of screens. In terms of platforms and devices, again, we're seeing that the adoption curve is a general technology adoption curve, right? So it starts in the sweet spot. The sweet spot, by the way, is the 25 to 39, 49-year-olds. So that's really where we're seeing that sweet spot because so we know that kids and teens are consuming an enormous amount of video, of course. However, when you get to the 18 to 24 age group, people get busy. They tend to not really like the place they live in, be that still with their parents or with flatmates, or it's just not a perfect living situation. So they tend to be more out, they tend to be more out and about, and therefore limit their media time. You hit 24, or more importantly, actually, you hit that life stage where you are moving in with a romantic partner, whenever that is. And the first thing you do is you get a place and you put a TV screen on the wall. Because that's what you do. You sit down and consume a lot more media again. So that's really where the sweet spot for streaming really happens. Yes, of course, it happens throughout the age groups, but the volume happens 24 and up. And what we're seeing more and more is that that really also goes into the older age groups. 65 plus are really, really clinging onto streaming now. It's becoming a universal activity, but of course, it takes time to permeate all of the age groups.
Thank you. And how much influence do data and audience analysis have at the time of producing content?
A lot, but maybe in a slightly different way than you might think. So what we do, particularly at VIACOM CBS, is we, as you saw in the quote from our president at the beginning, we like to put research as the foundation of everything we do. That means we try to understand our audiences. Who are we making this for? Kids, teens, young adults, grown-ups as themselves? Are we making this for parents? Who is this for? So we try and understand people's lives, not just their media behavior or not just their consumption. And then on top of that, of course, we test and we test and we test again. And very often that is then used by the creative teams to help inform. Now, we're not creating content based on just data. For us, data is always one of the elements that is there for our creative people to take decisions on. So we would never say, oh, you need to do this, this, and that, and create a formula, because quite frankly, if anybody could make that formula, they would be a very rich person by now. It really is a creative process for us, and research and data is one of the inputs into that.
Thank you. Finally, we have Addressable TV. As marketers, we're always wondering when and how will we achieve personal advertising for each user?
Soon is really the short answer. So in some elements, for like Pluto TV, it's already available, right? Like we still have to figure out where the data collection is and how all of that with data sensitivity, but it's already there as a distribution channel. For the wider mass market, it depends on the distribution platform, because the consumer doesn't care if I get my TV through a cable or through an aerial or through some other signal, call it IPTV. Consumer doesn't care. It's the same experience, right? So it really is a technological question of how does it get done? And in the streaming world, in the IPTV world, it's there and it's possible. In the cable world, we're getting closer to see really the networks need to be upgraded, because it changes the infrastructure. It changes the nature of broadcast from a one-to-many to one-to-one kind of conversation, and the technology just needs to catch up with that. But I think we're seeing really good progress around the world in that area.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you a lot for your time and your excellent presentation. Now I'm going to switch to Spanish to close this panel.
Thank you.
Bueno, qué interesante cuando uno tiene la posibilidad de reimaginarse una industria que tal vez pensaba que ya la tenía tan conocida, como hablamos al inicio del panel. En ese famoso artículo de Christian Andersen del 2004, del Long Tail, donde tenemos que empezar a agrupar la gran cantidad de propuestas de valor en estas ventanas de distribución que VIACOM CBS tiene y está operando y está trabajando para poder acomodar a todas las audiencias que dinámicamente nos movemos a lo largo de ella. Nos respondió acerca de todo lo que tiene que ver con Addressable TV, todo lo que son los formatos de streaming, cómo las diferentes generaciones se van acomodando. Habitualmente lo que nos pasa con la televisión es que la pensamos solamente en término direccional, y habitualmente esto lo podemos ver como una T invertida, donde los marketers nos enfocamos exclusivamente en todo lo que sucede cuando esa dirección del mensaje impacta en las redes sociales. Hoy entendemos que hay mucho más acerca de lo que tenemos que trabajar, y por sobre todas las cosas, de estos layers de información que son nuestros propios consumidores. Pensaba cuando Google hace algún tiempo nos hablaba del momento cero de la verdad y nos decía que habitualmente antes de hacer una compra teníamos que pensar que esa compra ya estaba definida, si el momento cero del streaming es la televisión. Y en este juego de ida y vuelta creo que nos queda mucho para aprender. Así que, Christian, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros y por haberte tenido hoy en este Marketing Shake de amdia. Muchas gracias.